Hi, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Vaccine Year. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, November 5th. We're talking post-election and pandemic and other stuff. And I have no idea who's coming because my producer's in St. Louis and I just invited everybody. So we will see. Right now, we are joined by Ryan P. Cruz of The Independent and the international man of mystery, multi-platform journalist Josh Molina. Thanks, guys, for coming. And here comes Nick Welsh. Okay.
I thought you were going to say multi-platinum.
Well, no, that's me. But all right. Hey, Ryan, so the big news in the pandemic this week, I guess, is the approval of, there's Nick, and now he's leaving. Is the approval of the vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds, correct? And what do we know about if it's going to be available soon or now or what?
Yeah, so CDC did approve the Pfizer for 5 to 11. It depends on where you live. You can get it just through the online. You can check there if there's appointments. And I think the big issue is going to be that there's going to be pushback in the schools. We already know the Board of Education meetings and school board meetings can get a little crazy. So I think the 5 to 11, I think there's going to be a lot of pushback from that, but I'm glad to see it. I think that should be approved.
Yeah, no doubt it's going to be a big deal in the schools. And it's not even, I mean, it is to protect the little kids, but it's also to, dare I say it, protect the grandparents of the little kids. And so we're pro-vaccine here on Newsmakers. So this is all good news as the numbers.
Have you been bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical industry?
Yeah, absolutely. That
paying your advertising.
That explains my vast advertising as well as my wardrobe. All right, enough of that. Let's talk election. Post-election, we had Randy Rowse elected mayor, Megan Harmon and Kristen Sneddon returned to office. So sort of a mixed message. Josh, what was the biggest surprise on election night?
Well, I think that we all kind of knew Randy was going to win, so that wasn't a surprise.
Nick didn't. He bet me that Cathy was going to win.
Yeah, but
he's trying to, well, I won't speak for Nick. I'm sure he can speak for himself. But the biggest surprise I would say is probably Barrett Reed really not being formidable at all in the District 4 race with how much money he raised. What was it, $250,000 or something? And it did not pay off in any way, shape, or form.
Like 1,000 some votes, right?
Yeah, he got about 1,200 votes. And I just, whenever somebody wants to do the math of the cost per vote, it was pretty ridiculous. And so I think, that was a surprise. I thought he was going to do better. I still think the lower turnout in District 6 with Megan Harmon and Nina Johnson was a bit of a surprise. Of course, we all thought Megan was going to win there. I think James Joyce really winning or, coming in second and being so far ahead of Cathy Murillo was a surprise to me. I think that we all sort of expected Randy was going to win, and then second was probably going to be Cathy, maybe James. But James is a clear second place winner, which has to be a victory for him. And, I guess Cathy tanked. I mean, there's no way to rephrase, reshape, calculate, put any kind of spin on the fact that Cathy's first term was not well received by the voters, and she paid for it on election night. She had a hard fall and she finished third, and there's just not a lot of precedence for an incumbent mayor to do that. And so I guess I was surprised she came in third, so far behind Randy.
Yeah.
Well, just to pick up on that, I mean, I do think, the specifics of Cathy's performance notwithstanding, whenever there's a prolonged crisis, whoever's at the top has a much harder time holding on to their seat. There is just sort of a well-documented trend where if we're going in, like coming out of a big fire and we have to rebuild, we saw the whole board of supervisors tossed out of office and a new wave come in. and previous fires. And so Cathy has had the debris flow, the drought, and now COVID, and she didn't really distinguish herself in any of them one way or the other. She was sort of the mayor who wasn't there, or the mayor who got out of the way. However you want to look at it, she wasn't, Giuliani after 9/11 or anything close. And I just think that she would have had to perform exceptionally well, not to have like the voters just say, we're fucking done, excuse me. And I think the voters were just tired.
Well, but there's also the opportunity. I mean, as we like to say in the political cliche handbook, these situations present both an opportunity and a challenge. And, there's a rallying around the flag effect in many cases when there's a crisis in our political leadership. And she just didn't do anything to spur that. Hey, Ryan, you had the best assignment in political writing on election night, going to the parties to see the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. What was what stood out for you on election night?
Yeah, like I said, me and June were running around parties. I was taking photos, grabbing some quotes, and June was dispatching from the road from her phone. We were getting some updates out, and like James had a really his party seemed really happy, even though he lost. He had a good run, and when I talked to him, he said he's not done in the city of Santa Barbara, and he learned a lot about himself during this time. And so I don't think we've seen the end of him. And like you said, there was a lower turnout, and that kind of affected, especially in District 6. I think it was at 30% or around that. And I mean, it's tough to know that the mayor is elected and only maybe 40% of the people that can vote did vote. So I would have liked to see.
I think was the final number.
Yeah, I would have liked to see a lot more people show up to vote, because I know I'm sure we're going to hear people that aren't happy with the outcome, and it's but they didn't show up on election day. So I hope maybe that can be something we look to in the future. But yeah, it was, besides the James Joyce, Randy Rowse, of course, was holding court, and everybody was going up and congratulating him.
Kissing the ring, yeah.
Yeah, kissing the ring. And Kristen Sneddon was at Sama Sama. That was, she thought Barrett was going to perform give her a run for her money. Because when we talked to her, she was like, are you sure that's what the total's at? And I was like, yeah, that's where we're at. And
doing her Hamlet act even in victory. Okay, we can. Well, I am reliably informed and therefore believe that James Joyce received a $200 bottle of whiskey shortly before the polls closed at 8 p.m. So that might explain some of the happiness at his party.
He had a glow.
Did you go to Cathy's or the Democrat?
Yeah, the cruisery with Cathy and Megan, and that was nice. She gave us a nice speech there. I think she was very gracious about it. It was just interesting to see James coming in second and her coming in third, and maybe if that could have been one candidate instead of two, who knows what the outcome. I mean, if we add up the votes together, we know what the outcome would have been, but it's interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, Nick, I know you agree with me that Josh once again buried the lead, and that the biggest surprise of election night was James Joyce's stronger than expected performance. Does he have a future? What is his future in politics? Everybody's saying that, including myself. But what specifically, where do you think he goes from here, or what opportunities present?
I am told that he and Randy are going to get together and talk about it. But to be honest, it's sort of one of those things where you don't intuitively there's a there, but it's not clear what it is. We have district elections. You would think after how well he performed citywide, he could run for office, but he lives over on the west side. The west side is currently represented by Oscar Gutierrez. I don't know that Oscar has any interest in stepping aside. And I think he would have a hard time running against Oscar. But not to say it can't be done. Does he want to do that? I mean, the thing about James that was interesting is that he ran an anti-campaign in some ways. He didn't raise a lot of money. He raised about $71,000, which He was very short on specifics. He didn't go really negative either, which I thought was really refreshing. But again, he wasn't real specific on things too. So there was a wonderful amorphousness to his campaign. And so the question is, where does he go? I think he can go somewhere, but it's just not real obvious to me where.
What do you think, Josh? What's James's future?
I think he would do just fine if he ran in District 3. I don't know why we would think otherwise. Well,
But doesn't Oscar have like a 28-year term or something? I mean, he's there forever, right?
yeah, he's there. I think 2024, I think, is when he's running. So I know a little bit of a preview. I've done a podcast today with James Joyce, which will be published this weekend, where we deconstruct the campaign, he and Wade Cooper, and we talk about his future. So I'll give you a little preview here. James is probably not going to run for office anytime soon. He's going to focus on his coffee with a black guy initiative and business. But his doors, there's a lot of doors open to him. Should he choose to run for something, he did really well. So he's probably going to be formidable in any sort of contest that he wants to get involved with. I think that he learned a lot. If we're being honest, if we're being realistic about the campaign, he waited too long. Okay, he started late. He didn't raise enough money. What is it until the very end of the campaign where he picked up some momentum? The Indy endorsed him probably a week too late. If it was a week earlier, this is what, I've heard might have helped him more with the fundraising. He had a lot of things work for him, and a couple of things just didn't quite click. That being said, he cleaned Cathy's clock, and I think the Democratic Party should probably think about whether they're going to, keep refining their process in terms of how they select candidates. I do think it's
no, they are not, because I mean,
okay, but let me just jump in here. Okay, the Democratic Party has obviously problems with how they cultivate candidates, but with Cathy Murillo,
also with communication.
They had to endorse her. I mean, she has been a loyal Democratic Party member. She's delivered the goods that matter to the party. You could not, in good conscience, not endorse her if you're the Democratic Party. And James, at that point, was really ephemeral as an alternative.
My point is that the chairman of the Democratic Party yesterday morning puts out a communique that's supposed to make everybody feel good. Hey, we reelected Kristen Sneddon, who was running away from the Democratic endorsement in District 4. And we reelected Megan Harmon, who never, her election was never in doubt. And we really think that Cathy Murillo is going to finish second, which was just about the dumbest thing I've ever seen anybody write in politics. First of all, because they don't give any awards for second in politics.
You're just being a mean. I gotta say, Jerry.
And second of all, it didn't happen. They're saying we did such great work getting out the vote on Tuesday morning. They got out the vote for James. Come on.
Come on. I mean, if you're gonna beat up on the Democratic Party, they did the same thing for Cathy as what happened from a call-up in Virginia. They ran against Donald Trump. Well, guess what? Voters say, we don't like that. Shut up about Donald Trump. He's not in the picture. Run against the person who is. And it didn't work in Virginia. It didn't work for Cathy. So the Democratic Party's got to say something.
Here's what didn't work for Cathy. Cathy ran on the status quo. She said, everything is great. The city's well run. We're better off than LA. I've done a great job, and I went to the meeting of the Western Regional whatever. People don't feel that way. People aren't happy with the way things are. And so that's why she got her clock clean. And in fact, her 27% base declined to 25%. Hey, Ryan, go ahead.
Sorry, let me just add a little bit there. I don't think that the fact that she put out a mailer comparing Trump to Rowse at the end mattered. What mattered was the last 4 years. And Cathy needs to do some soul searching. She's too fake. She needs to be authentic, and she needs to look in the mirror and see herself the way other people see her if she wants a future in politics. It'd be like if I just talked to you all day, Jerry. Tell me what a great journalist I am, Jerry. Just tell me over and over. I'm going to tell you, and I'm not going to listen to all the other critics, okay? They don't exist.
That's the conversation we have multiple times a week, Josh. What are you talking?
The truth is, you have to listen to your critics, and you have to acknowledge your own flaws, and you have to strive to get better, because that's the only opportunity you have for growth. And she lives in this theatrical world where we started a PLA, we have a community formation commission, we revitalized downtown. Nobody talks like that. She needs to do some soul searching. And where James is good at is one-on-one conversations, authenticity. That really matters. And I think 4 years, as Nick explained, with the pandemic, with the debris flow, and all of these events that happened, she was exposed, and it was a perfect storm for her to not get reelected. So
yeah, Cathy was a very good district council member, but she wasn't a very good mayor. So Ryan, you said that you talked to Randy on election night. Was that your first exposure to the new alcalde, or what was your impression?
No, we had interviewed him for endorsements at Independent, and so we gotten to know him, and I've been covering City Hall, and before, when he used to be on it, I remember when I was on the channels, we would cover that a little bit and to see what he was up to. And I mean, he seems to not be a conservative. He really likes to stay away from "I'm not conservative," so he doesn't like that label. Although he is the alternative to what you would say is the liberal candidates in town. So I think he's just going to keep things the way it is, the way they are. I'm worried that maybe businesses, or I'm worried whose interests will be kind of catered to in his term. And I asked him if how he's going to represent all of Santa Barbara and the communities that, not just the communities that voted for him, but the communities that didn't vote for him. How is he going to make sure they're heard? And he says, he gave a kind of a simple answer that was just like, I really want all the community to be part of my term. And so we'll see how that comes to be, and if he listens to communities, the lower income communities, the communities of color, that remains to be seen.
All right, well,
you know, it's funny, Jerry, you were saying that Cathy was the status quo. I mean, actually, the council did enact a lot of so-called change under her mayoralty. And Randy, I think, is really the status quo candidate. He's the one, hey, we're moving too fast, let's put on the brakes. You don't accelerate as you go into a curve. You need a little suspension here. We got to go slower and easier and not try to be, too progressive. We don't, the Democratic Party progressive agenda should not be the agenda of City Hall. And he is a much more go slow kind of guy. He's not quite this grumpy old man, get off my lawn, that Frank Hotchkiss was, but, there's going to be a lot of friction, I think, between Randy and, say, Megan Harmon, for example, over issues of homelessness, over what do we do about police reform, criminal justice reform, and what do we do about State Street, and how much housing do we have? So I think Randy kind of gets a bit of a pass because he's congenial and moderate, and he's not a Republican, but he is pretty conservative. And so I think it's going to be an interesting navigation that he's going to have to pull off here.
Well, Nick, you, of course, broke the journalistic world record for shortest honeymoon for a newly elected person by raining on Randy's parade throughout your column this week. So I think that lasted about 12 seconds. But Josh, isn't the fact that Nick is missing, that's right in front of us all, that what he's going to do is change the tone at City Hall from one of paranoia, secretiveness, and getting your enemies to being open and accessible to everybody?
yes, on a personality level, he is going to do all those things. And he's got a lot of connections with people in Santa Barbara that Cathy does not. However, I do agree with Nick in one sense. It will not take long before people are mad at Randy. You know, the first time,
Well,
you know,
some
they
of them
passed,
are already mad for
They-
what he said in the interview with me about the formation commission and about the Measure C money for homeless at the Rose Garden Inn and a couple of other things as well.
yeah, I mean, all the progressives, right? You know, they're not exactly going to be happy with Randy. And if Randy's like, no national issues, well, what's going to happen when they try to put a reproductive freedom resolution on the agenda or healthcare for all agenda? Is he going to quash that? Well, he's going to get beat up in public comment by a ton of progressives in Santa Barbara. So yes, Randy's going to make everybody feel a little bit more heard, but I think it's an illusion to think that we're not going to have people in public comment outraged over Randy's positions and policies probably very quickly on the council. It's just going to shift a little bit. And I don't think you can measure a legacy immediately. You know, we need to, you know, Helene Schneider's legacy is
Well,
different
we
now
should
than
probably let him get sworn in first before we measure his legacy. But Ryan, when you looked at the turnout, which you mentioned earlier, which looked very, very low the day before the election, and you do have to credit the Democratic Party with getting a lot of those last day votes. But the two districts where turnout was lowest, in abysmally so, were 1 and 3, which are a majority Latino districts. You had the first Latina mayor who was in history going for a second term. How do you square that circle? You know, in other words, why wasn't there more enthusiasm for her in those districts, which basically were her base?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard to get the Hispanic community to get out and get behind somebody because it's hard for a politician to connect on that level. Oscar's done a good job with connecting with the community he's in, but I don't think Cathy has that same connection to the community. She does represent Latina business owners and stuff like that, but I think like the community, it's really hard. You have to get them out and interested in the effect they can have, and that's really tough to do. And I don't think we've had a candidate or this time around that really was able to connect to the Hispanic community here in town, which is a huge voting base. If you were able to get them behind you, that would be an overwhelming amount of votes.
Well, someone who's had some success with that is District 1 Council Member Alejandra Gutierrez.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But
Yeah, she has a great connection with the East Side community, and if on a mayoral level, if somebody is able to connect like that, that's a huge base that really is kind of where a lot of the heart of the city is. So where the policies can be changed, that's who's affected by this.
But Alejandra, of course, famously went out on a limb to endorse Nina.
Yeah.
With some harsh words for her still colleague.
I'm also picking the Detroit Lions to win the Super Bowl.
What? No, wait a minute.
Same thing.
So Nick, is this Alejandra Megan thing just going to be a small kerfuffle that comes and goes, or you think there's going to be lingering impact from that?
You know, I think that has yet to be seen. I think that there's a lot of personality dynamics that at the council level, which are really uncomfortable and may be very counterproductive. There's a lot of really bruised feelings that even without Cathy in the picture, they're still going to be there. And, you know, Kristen and Megan, how are they going to work it out? Michael Jordan and Kristen, you know, Oscar and Eric. And, you know, you're just, the geometry of discord is pretty intricate there. And it seems like you might need a marriage and family therapist to have a few sessions behind closed doors to try to, you know, work stuff out.
Yeah. Well, I was at City Hall. I actually left my house on election night, went down to City Hall.
Were you wearing your pajamas?
No, I wasn't. I put on pants actually, but And that was my first look at the new bustling State Street. So I visited 7-Eleven to get some coffee. That was a highlight of my trip. But I don't know, for some reason I had in my mind, election night 2008 in Lincoln Park, where Obama, spoke to 88 million people. And I got down there and there were like 12 people, 10 of whom were Josh's students from the channels. But eventually, most of the council showed up, and I was witness to Michael Jordan congratulating Kristen, which was very gracious, and I left my mouth open, I have to say. Josh, where does Nina Johnson go from here? She certainly took a big risk taking on one of the incumbent council members. Is she going to go back to her high-paying city hall job?
Well, a couple of things before I answer that. I think Megan's going to be big, and I don't think she's going to hold a grudge against Alejandra. I think Alejandra needs to work on repairing some relationships, because endorsing Nina in the way that she did was it didn't just upset Megan, it upset a lot of other people who felt that was not a very classy way to do an endorsement. And not there's anything wrong with how, the fact that she liked Nina, but the way it was done, I think, offended a lot of people. So it would behoove her to sort of start repairing some relationships. Megan and Randy are close, by the way. If you go back and watch Randy's speech when he stepped off the council, she called him a mentor, an inspiration, somebody she really valued. So I don't think we're going to see any rift there, at least initially. Nina has a job at City Hall, of course. She can go back and do her job. I think as a practical matter, I don't know how many feathers she ruffled. She campaigned on the fact that the city needed change and needed to do a better job with the business community, and the city council was out of touch. And now I'm going to go back and work with all these people who I said weren't doing their job. So I think as a practical matter, she may want to think about something else for her long-term future. But I mean, they're not going to fire her. I don't think they can fire her. She'll go back to her job and keep working until she decides she wants to go work for the private sector, which she seemed to trump as being the answer to so much.
Yeah, going to the business community, I don't think this was a good night for the business community. The candidates that they liked, Nina Johnson, Barrett Reed,
Deborah Schwartz.
These are the people who are going to, tame the red tape monster. These are people who are going to instill leadership. These are people who are going to be more business friendly and more intense in terms of housing. None of those candidates really got traction. I mean, Barrett, he spent it's probably going to be $300,000 by the time all is done. I think what he proves is all politics is local. Kristen lives in the district, has lived in the district, has been involved with school politics there, and he's a newcomer. Some people might say he's even a carpetbagger, but and he's a developer in a district that likes slow growth, and he's not in sync with that sort of slow growth vibe. Whereas Kristen, who is sort of social justice, slow growth sort of fusion, is. And I think it didn't matter how much money he had, he was going to have a harder road to hoe. Nina was just, the people who liked Nina worked and owned businesses on State Street. They didn't live in the district and vote in the district. And Deborah Schwartz, she got tossed under the bus by the business community in favor of Randy.
And if I could be a little bit probably insensitive here, but honest, candidates should stop taking photos, selfies in front of the farmers market with businesses downtown, or having people ride scooters with your sign on it, or posting your sign on buildings of people who support you. That doesn't work, and it clutters up everything, and it does not work. It is foolish campaigning, and we saw a lot of it in this campaign. It's one level above Boat Rat Matt doing his signs on trees. It's just not effective. You've got to knock on doors, period.
Speaking of Boat Rat Matt, your prediction, Josh, that Boat Rat Rat would beat Mark Whitehurst, boy, are we getting
It was
to the
close.
bottom
It
of the
wasn't
barrel
that-
or what? Turned out not to be true.
It was 200 votes. It was.
Come on, the tree killer vote is not that big in Santa Barbara, and the QAnon vote is not that big in Santa Barbara. And so poor Boat Rat Matt was a man without a country.
He really was. All right, predictions. Nick, what is the first conflict that Randy Rowse will have with the city council?
Oh, hard to say. I tell you, the first thing he will do is going to be hose down State Street bring out the steam cleaners on State Street. The first will probably be the Formation Commission. That should be coming back pretty soon. And the issue is probably going to be, do we have subpoena power or not to this new Police Review Commission? And Randy is decidedly lukewarm about the existence of the commission at all, let alone giving them the subpoena power.
All right, Josh.
I agree with Nick. This issue over the Civilian Formation Commission is going to be big. First of all, Cathy was not going to do this. This is something the public pushed the council to do, and they had no choice. They had to. I mean, it would have been a total, outrage had they not listened to the community. If Randy thinks he's going to go in there and just turn down the defund the police conversation, he's wrong. Obviously, defunding is not the answer, but they want to take resources and put them in ways that don't involve police officers making the first contact. That's a very real initiative that progressives are going to be pushing for. Randy's not going to be able to charm his way out of that conversation.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, let me ask you something about COVID just before we go. James Joyce proposed very early in the campaign, and I disagree with you guys about his specifics, because I think he was specific about an ethics plan. He was specific about reducing the size of campaign contributions, and see you later, Josh. He was specific about a vaccine mandate, but nothing ever happened at City Hall. How come City Hall is the only agency where we don't have a vaccine mandate?
I'm not sure. I mean, as you said, there's a lot of places that do have a mandate, and it's work to get 99% of people vaccinated at those jobs. As in New York City, they said 10,000 police officers were gonna walk off, and 34 total, which is a minuscule percentage. And so it's proven that these vaccine mandates do help get people vaccinated, even if they were reluctant at first, and maybe they'll see that it's not that bad. Everybody can go back to work. It's a little bit more freedom when you're vaccinated. So I mean, that's a good question, and I think, like Josh and Nick said, this is an opportunity for Randy Rowse to prove when these issues come up, if he's the mayor for part of the city or all of the city, if he's going to listen to all the city council members. This is his chance to prove, are people's fears going to be proven true, or is maybe he is a good thing for the city? We'll see.
Nick, my recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that in your debate, the question of vaccine mandates came up, did it not? And Randy was kind of less than lukewarm about it, about mandating anyone.
I think this is an issue where Randy and Cathy are actually kind of inadvertently on the same page. Cathy doesn't want to push it too hard because the unions aren't behind it. And Randy doesn't want to push it too hard because he says, what do you think I am? Dr. Henning Ansel? I'm not the public health department. I'm not your doctor. And so he's ideologically adverse to imposing that mandate. Cathy doesn't want to push the unions if they don't want to do it voluntarily. And I think that's why we don't see it. I think at the city level, something like 80% or more than 80% of the workers are already vaccinated, but I don't know how that shakes out in, say, the police department.
All right, we got to go. Thanks very much, Ryan Cruz, Nick Welsh, and the absent Josh Molina. For the record, this was by far the biggest mansplaining show we've ever had, but It was not for a lack of trying, I assure you. So take care, and we will see you next time on Newsmakers.